Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show again. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Ross Strachan. We are really good friends outside of politics and him also being on the show the last time around, but as well as he is the DA caucus leader in Msunduzi. Um, he's been leading that caucus exceptionally well. And there's one thing I've always mentioned just before I introduce, before I allow Ross to come in, is one thing that I've loved about the work that Ross has done outside of opposing. He has always offered solutions to the issues that are faced in the province, the beleaguered province of KwaZulu-Natal. So rather, welcome Ross to the show.
Yeah, thank you once again, Kuhle, and it's great to be with you again and your viewers. Yeah, you referred to me as the Usunduzi caucus leader. I'm going to quote John Steenhuisen here. It's like downtown Mogadishu. So yeah, we're really on on a battlefield here in Usunduzi, on the front line. But thank you for having me.
Right, right. No, no, thank you so much for coming through. So, one of the things that everyone knows is the budget speech has been tabled, the municipal one specifically, the 2025-26 budget speech tabled by the mayor. And basically, this past week, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically shared the rescue plan that the DA has drafted as a caucus, which you do lead. And I took a lot of interest in your rescue plan, hence I asked you to come onto the show again. And I think one of the big things that I took out of the rescue plan, and I think it's just a great place to start off because I've been hammering on this even in other councils like City of Tshwane and the rest, where there's a lot of wasteful expenditure around, I would call petty events. I think you spoke of the Last Dance Party, which is very popular, by the way. I mean, many South Africans know the Last Dance Party is famously hosted in Msunduzi, Pietermaritzburg. And you just spoke about sort of cutting on such petty events, especially looking at the financial constraints in which the city finds itself in.
Yeah, so you're 100% correct. We don't, and I want to make it clear, we don't not support events like the Last Dance. Obviously, soccer clubs coming into our city and playing at our stadiums. We really do promote events and long-standing historical events like the Comrades Marathon, which is happening very soon. The Duzi Marathon, which unfortunately was cancelled due to the E. coli levels in the Duzi, and various other cultural events and social events that's historically happened in Msunduzi that attracts people not just from in the province but from outside the province, and even on the international stage, into our city. But we're not in the financial position to be in sponsorship deals with these events. We need to start being inventive. We need to start bringing the public sector closer to us. In the last show, the last interview with me, I stated very clearly that the government fiscus is absolutely broke, both national, provincial, and now that is obviously going to affect local government as well. So Msunduzi can't rely on the same sort of strategies and plans. It's business unusual, and we've got to start collaborating with the private sector. And I think I mentioned in the last show that a case study municipalities like Mhlatuze, where they've won accolades for service delivery, all benchmarked on public-private partnerships. In the recent week, the MEC of Finance hosted an eThekwini public-private partnership launch roadshow, which was very successful and very popular, especially from the business sector and people in general. It's about time government comes closer to the private sector, and starts to hold hands and trying to fix local government as well as all spheres of government. So our rescue plan was benchmarked on where we have been successful in leading local governments, where public-private partnerships have been successful, and we basically we don't make up these pie in the sky sort of plans by thumb sucking sort of dreams. We actually have a grounded track record, a proven track record of success, and these aren't political analyst statistics. These are government statistics of where we govern well. So I must emphasize that our plan is grounded in a proven track record, and it is presented and costed, and obviously streamlined, like our neighbors up the road in Umgeni, who did basically the same stuff as us. It's not rocket science. It's very simple, and doing the basics and changing a few strategies in terms of trying to enhance revenue.
I think one of the big things that you spoke of, and I really have got a passion about speaking about, has to be um, you speaking of the city sponsoring the Royal AM soccer team. And, it's no secret between me and you that the lady in particular that owned that football club had close ANC ties, as well as, those KZN tender ties and all sorts, which also did lead to what we saw in eThekwini when that metro just took one seat parties, that we believe something happened, but well, I do personally believe something happened backdoor, and they took one seat parties through such figures like this Shoni Mkhize lady. And you sort of got to wonder what is it that the ANC doesn't see that we see that Msunduzi is the capital number one. It's a capital that is not a business-friendly capital. Like you said it this past Monday, I think Monday or Tuesday at the showgrounds. You said it's not a business-friendly city. Businesses are leaving the city. Instead of funding young entrepreneurs or supporting or creating a business-friendly environment, they will go ahead and sponsor a soccer team, which is now defunct due to her own issues with the taxman. So it's one of those crazy things. But you also highlighted something I found very interesting, and I think that links back to the expropriation bill, which the ANC have passed, which was on abandoned buildings. You highlighted that in the rescue plan about sort of refurbishing abandoned buildings and creating low-cost housing and assisting the homeless and also perhaps would you like to delve into that? Because we do know that abandoned buildings are becoming a real problem in our CBDs right across the country. They are harboring drugs, harboring crime, harboring all sorts of unethical things.
Yeah, so this plan started uh, uh, right at the beginning of the budget process when we were trying to work out a plan to obviously enhance revenue in the city and also to utilize and ensure that these, and not just buildings, it's land as well, that is not abandoned and obviously attracts criminal activity, as you've said, drugs, as well as vagrants as well, which is a massive problem in the city. Most of our vacant buildings, as well as vacant land, is where the hives of activity in terms of criminal activity happen. And the SAPs just don't have the capacity to deal with it, and neither does our public safety unit because they're not established as a law enforcement unit. So we really have no teeth to deal with the urban decay that's happening from this specific problem, and it's assets in general. We've got NGOs that are working tirelessly in the city with no real support from the municipality. And we've got to start looking at inventive ways where we can either dispose of these abandoned buildings, upgrade them, refurbish them, and utilize them to our advantage, whether it be social ills or revenue generation. We have to do something positive with a positive outcome for the benefit of the people that live in the city, and also to fight the ongoing social ills in the city, as well as crime. So our proposal was very clear, is that we hold hands with the private sector, we hold hands with the likes of NGOs, NPOs, and we really combat the social ills, drugs, homelessness, gender-based violence, orphaned kids, and the list goes on, which social development obviously haven't got the capacity and haven't got the budget to deal with. But we have got people in the city that are from the private sector already doing the hard work without being recognized by the capital city. And it's unacceptable. And we need to hold hands and support them. And we need to put our efforts into making sure that it's sustainable, and people are being recognized. So that was our plan. And it's also good if obviously we can't utilize if buildings have got to a point where they about to be condemned for various reasons. Let's dispose of them, sell the land, sell the property, and get some money in the kitty. As much the same with our land. We've got huge Transnet land as well that's sitting vacant, especially in my ward as the ward councillor of Ward 26. Mayor's Walk, there's a huge property there. And it's just waiting for investment, either from government or from private. And, we need to engage with the likes of Transnet and all these other public sectors, public sectors and spheres, and say, look, if you're not utilizing your land, we'll take it over and we will invest, either with housing opportunities, which we desperately need. Now, that's mentioned in our rescue plan, to alleviate and try and combat the mushrooming of informal settlements. People want to get closer to the CBD. They need dignity with housing opportunities that's affordable for people that are living below the threshold. So we're not nothing was spoken about that in the budget, which is, I'm not disappointed. I'm not surprised, because, at the moment, the ANC are they in an absolute, what in Afrikaans people say, a dwal, that they're trying to save their own party. And, I say it's like cattle going to AAA beef, waiting to be slaughtered. Eat as much as you can while you can, because you're going out. And that's the reality of the situation. But what they don't realize is the wolves are waiting at the back door. And if they don't listen to what the public says, I speak on behalf of the public. I listen to the public. And the public want a city that they can create a sustainable life in. And the ANC are just not listening to that. They are making irresponsible decisions. They are playing lip service. The mayor is calling it the year of massive service delivery. If I look outside my house now, I haven't had my refuse collected for almost 7 days now. That's the norm. And how do you justify increasing tariffs if you can't get the most basic of services right? It is not just unjust, it's irresponsible. We collect from, as I've said in the last interview, we collect from less than 40% of the people that can afford to pay. If we just start being inventive and start using the private sector to our advantage, I'm not talking about privatization. I'm talking about holding hands with people they want to help and get involved. Start capacitating the infrastructure in Vulindlela, where they haven't had water for years and years, and they're drinking from rivers. The private sector is willing to go out there, put boreholes in with no cost whatsoever, as long as we form a relationship and work as a symbiosis together, where they can get rebates on something, incentives, business incentives. Let's start looking at renewable energy solutions to try and ease the capacity on our grid, which is dilapidated and will take years and billions to fix. We cannot just rely on the same plans and the same old rhetoric. It's not going to work. We've got to listen. We've got to hold hands, because if we don't, those wolves will come in the back door, and it's going to be even worse. The city will collapse even further, and it is going to be like downtown Mogadishu if you're not careful.
True, Ross. I think, one thing in common outside of our friendship and our views on economics and the rest is the fact that we both live in Msunduzi, part-time. Well, me part-time, you permanently. But one of the things is I've tracked a lot of the DA wards, especially in Msunduzi, and I've looked at the performance and tried to compare them to what I think at a point in time Msunduzi had two IFP wards, but now there's only one left, if I'm not mistaken, and then the others are ANC wards, right? And
Yeah,
then there's an independent. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I've gotten to look at the DA wards, and it's one of the things I always made a joke and said the funny thing is all ANC leaders live in DA run wards. It's a real thing, That's the ANC.
And they send their kids to DA ward schools.
So exactly. It's one of the funniest things ever that it's like sort of like I'm a doctor at this hospital, but no, I don't want to be treated here.
Irony.
Yeah, exactly. So I looked at some of these day awards and I've looked at the incredible development that is going on, which I think the mayor will speak about it because he's an ANC mayor and it's a ANC run government holistically. But you've got to look where the investment is happening from the private sector specifically. And you look in places like Athlone, Athlone has got that beautiful new shopping center that has hired a lot of people. It's brought in a lot of business. You look at the Cascades. It's another shopping center not too far from where I am, the Town Bush Valley area. You sort of look at where the private sector is taking investment to. And you ought to come to a point, Ross, where you realize that even the private sector is showing the ANC that, look, we are sick and tired of working in a place that is not business friendly. You know, they've taken their business to DA run wards, largely. I mean, you look at the new housing projects that have started up. I mean, I've been following that a couple of new apartment blocks are being built, like Hesketh and all sorts. These places are coming to DA run wards where it's believed that, at least service delivery is better than service delivery in Mbali, because a person in Mbali will not have electricity for a whole week or two. And that's a real life situation. It's not that we're trying to bash the ANCs. It's really just what goes on. And it's one of those unspoken truths that I think the ANC continues to neglect, not just the voters, but neglects its constituents. And some, I will refer to it as the township vote. That's just me referring to it as the township vote. They neglect their constituents. And the unfortunate truth is we, the ratepayers, have to keep on paying more. And that is something that you touched on as well in this rescue plan, was the increased rates and tariffs that others made sense. I think I do agree with you with increasing with inflation when it comes to electricity, because I mean, it's life. Everything goes up. But there are just some ridiculous rates and tariffs that are just like, why on earth am I paying for a service that I don't need?
Unjustified.
Exactly. And I think you touched on that, and I would like to just.
Kute, I wanted to touch on something you said about investment and I once was taught by a mentor of mine when I first came in as a counselor. He was one of the oldest counselors and one of the longest standing counselors in Umsunduzi, possibly even in KZN. They used to call him William of Wembley. His name is Councillor Bill Lambert. I don't know if you've heard that name before.
No.
He was a previous caucus leader. And he said to me something very important, is that if you drive through a city and you see the amount of cranes in a city, it means the city is doing something right. If you drive through Umsunduzi, you don't see cranes, you don't see development. And that's an indication of a city that's not investment friendly. And you spoke about, and I want to get rid of this idea or possibly a fallacy that, people need to understand, residents need to understand that DA wards in ANC run municipalities or vice versa, and I'm going to specifically refer to Umsunduzi and every other ANC run municipality where there are DA wards. We do not control the purse of each ward. We do not control the service delivery of each ward. We do not have our own bank account that and our own officials and our own team that go out and do the work in terms of verges and collection of waste and open spaces. We rely on the administration under the ANC. But what we do right, and what our wards and our residents do right, the private sector, basic folk, is that they have now had enough of no services and they're taking it into their own hands. I'll give you a clear example. I've got a suburb called Clarendon in my ward, and I want to take my hats off to them because they're a civil community that has really been a shining beacon in the city of Pietermaritzburg. They have literally implemented their own service delivery. They've not waited. They've gone out and fixed potholes themselves with their own money. They've taken care of issues of service delivery at their own accord. They've cleaned their own verges and their own open spaces. We don't have time to sit and wait. If we let our suburbs decay, investment property values drop. Let's be entirely honest. And that's why you see most of the investments happening with the support of ward councillors in DA-run wards, is because the people have invested into the ideas and the philosophies and the understandings of the Democratic Alliance in those wards. We want development. We're development friendly, and we will assist you. If the municipality can't, we will come and assist you, pick up rubbish, have days where we clean verges. We do that as DA councillors. But, some residents think the DA runs this ward and they're failing to deliver services. It doesn't work like that. The budget is incorporated for the entire municipality, not ward-based. And we will allocate to previously disadvantaged areas and depending on the majority in terms of what the proposals are, some agree, some don't agree. That's how the budget works. And obviously, with an ANC-run municipality, very well, is that you can be steamrolled. Just like in this budget right now. We proposed our rescue plan. We were 12 votes. They were 42. And the 42 included the EFF who abstained, which is just the same as voting for. The IFP, surprisingly, go out and they profess to be these saviors of service delivery, especially now in the northern areas, but they voted for the budget, which is not pro-investment, not pro-poor. It's absolutely mind-boggling. You've got to put your money where your mouth is. And where you do that is when you go into council and you vote on a budget. If you feel you're not happy, don't toe the party line. If you're unhappy, speak out and vote against it. Even if your party is against it, you've got to speak up for the people. And that's what the Democratic Alliance does. And we stand a united front, and we will always do it, despite criticism. But we have a plan, and it's working everywhere else. It just makes sense. Support it, and let's grow the city.
I think, one of the big things you've got to look at our neighbors, where our good friend, Mayor Papas, runs that city, Umgeni, a municipality. And it's a city that has turned around in less than 5 years. I mean, it's only been there for 3-4 years. It has literally turned around. It's become investment friendly. It has improved through ratings. Everything has just improved about that city. I think the residents don't even complain because you know what you're paying for. You can see the service delivery. You can see the refurbishment of roads. The simple, basic things are happening. And that's what people want. People are not expecting some messiah or utopia. They just want my rubbish to be collected, the roads to be tarred, the simple things. And I think that really serves as why you mentioned that, you've got so many examples where you base the rescue plan off. And one of the shocking things which I read the other day, and I think you guys rightfully opposed, if I'm not mistaken, was on the idea of Msunduzi, which is always a conversation, of it becoming a metro, And with budget season coming about, different cities and municipalities have announced their budgets. I was listening to the Joburg budget 2 days ago. It's about 89 billion. The Ekhuruleni one was about 67 billion. And then you get to us, Sunduzi, we are very far off from those billions and billions. And you've just got to ask, is the ANC living in the same world we live in when they believe that this place could become a metro as of tomorrow? I mean, it's just one of those questions that perhaps we live in our own world and they live in their own.
A fine example is our airport. Let's say we become a metro tomorrow. Our airport is about to be closed down for non-compliance. We're running at almost 200% loss. Flights sometimes have to be deviated to Durban because we don't have any landing gear or lights. All the systems fail. There is corruption within the security of that entity. All our entities are running at losses, our forest. And for me, you become a metro tomorrow with the existing budget we have and the existing revenue we generate. My friends, we will absolutely turn this whole of the Midlands into a slum. And they've got to accept the fact that without working with the private sector and experienced professionals, government's not in the business of running airports. Local government's not in the business of running forests. We are in the business of service delivery. Give it to professionals that can run it with the capacity without political interference and the experience. Then we can generate revenue that we so desperately need, and we can become self-sustainable to fund our own projects without the help from central government. It's a no-brainer, but because, and you've said, does the ANC live in a different world? Unfortunately, it's become a culture. And the culture is take while you can, when you can, and it's not going to suit their agenda if now they've got to play open cards with the private sector who holds the purse in terms of paying salaries out of their taxes. And now you've all of a sudden got to open your cards and show them your inefficiencies and possible corruption. So that's the fear that the ANC have of bringing the public closer, is that they might potentially be exposed. So you've got to swallow your pride. And I think, with all due respect, Kuhle, I think Ramaphosa's realized this. I can see it in his attitude. I can see it in the change of some of the people in the ANC, is that they've been humbled and they realize and they've acknowledged that working with the DA within the GNU is actually sustainable. And they are actually helping to bring this city, this province, this country back to a place where it should be, where people want to come and visit and invest. It's basic stuff. We've got to get rid of the political rhetoric. If we don't hold hands on this together and look at what is sensible, not political, we can make it work.
I think you just spoke of something so interesting. And I think as we approach the last part of the conversation, which has to be, what do you call it? Which has to be on our president and his undying wave of knowledge, and his lovely knowledge, taking a trip to the US. And, I made a video this past week where I said, John Steenhuisen gave Ramaphosa a get out of jail free card. He saved us. That was a get out of jail free card.
And I believe he even thanked John. So I hope so.
Yeah. Because that was heroic. I won't lie. That was perhaps one of the moments where I feel like, John took off the hat of being the leader of the DA and a once opposition party to being, we need to save the country. This is on a world stage. The interest of the country is greater than the interest of my party. which kudos to him, hats off, respect, 100% respect what he did. And I think one of the big things that we learned from last week was the ripple effect of state capture, that has led to all these unsavory things that we see in our society, which we mentioned, like GBV, the rest, and all sorts. Now, it's no secret that state capture, well, to us that know this, started, as you rightfully mentioned, at some point in time, started in Msunduzi. Many people don't know this, that it started in the same city that you lead the caucus of the DA. And it started as, you could link it back to the time when JZ, the leader of MK, Jacob Zuma, was the MEC. And perhaps you can touch on that.
Yeah, I remember coming in the heat of the Zuma administration in 2016. Funny enough, the deputy mayor was Tobani Zuma, who is one of Jacob's close relatives, and all the familiar faces, and all the officials and senior managers, municipal managers, were all very, very closely linked to Jacob Zuma at that time. And obviously, we always got the biggest rogues in terms of municipal managers sent to the city. We did have one really good one that came from Kokstad, and he turned around the city. He was really doing a good job. And then from 2016, when state capture was at its heart, we had these rogues coming in, and what they were sent for was just to open financial opportunities for the politicians in charge. And that's how state capture worked, is that the officials, strategically, you put them in places to open opportunities for the connected comrades. And it was a network. And to be very honest, state capture and Zuma's plan was really well crafted. I mean, it's one of the biggest heists in the globe, in the country, in the world. The heist of state capture, which was aided by, we know very well who, in other countries, and all the meetings were held right here in the capital of KZN, in Msunduzi, which is the government hub of KZN, because we've got the legislature and all the departments here. And what a better place to start with the second biggest budget is in Msunduzi, which at one stage was a shining light in terms of a city that was, I would compare to some of the best universities in the country. People used to flock here from everywhere to come and study in Pietermaritzburg. It was vibrant. There was youth everywhere. People loved coming to Maritzburg because there was always something happening. And it's a shell of the city it used to be. And the collapse of Msunduzi didn't start yesterday. It started way back then, when the Zuma administration came into power and used Msunduzi as the wedge, the benchmark of how they would continue countrywide. And those same faces, you need to read Greg Arday's book. It's called War Party. It's a very interesting book, and it goes into the ANC's murderous past and its murderous present, and all the same old thugs that are still around the same table making the same decisions. And some of our local municipalities have all been part. And some of those rogues, and all of them actually now, as you've noticed, a huge sort of migration to the MK. And it's happening. And if you look at the people that are in the legislature and in the party, it's mainly officials. Officials from that Zuma administration. All the 2016 officials in our municipality, I can guarantee you now, who were deployed by the deputy mayor, Tobani Zuma, who's now MK, are also MK now, because those were deployees who followed suit. And you will find that there's sabotage happening in Msunduzi politically within our own administration. And that's the scary thing, is if we don't wake up, and we bring in the private sector to save the city, it's just going to crumble and be eaten up faster than you think. It's going to be insidious.
I think one of the things that you highlight on is the levels of corruption, especially as we're wrapping this conversation, is municipalities. People wouldn't know this, but for us that have, like you and I, who have been exposed to local government, is local government is largely more corrupt than provincial. And
100%.
it's that people always think the rot is on top, till you actually get into local and you realize, oh no, it's actually right here.
Can I tell you why?
Yes, yes.
There's no separation of powers.
Hmm.
There is no defined separation of powers in terms of the Constitution and under the Constitution in terms of all the systems and acts that guide local government. It's a problem because there is no separation of powers. Administration can overlap into politics. Politics can overlap into administration. And we are an autonomous body that decides on our own laws. Obviously, it has to be in line with the Constitution, but we know that those laws can be flouted and easily flouted because there's no separation of powers. You can deploy a politician into an official seat without anyone budging an eyelid. You can deploy an administrator who's an ANC comrade to come and intervene in an ANC-run municipality. There's no separation of powers. Local government is the feeding trough for ANC politicians, even at national and provincial level. That is clear as daylight.
Well, I think, as you said, that is clear as daylight. It's one of the things that always keep us, we hope that next year's elections will be an election that shows that the voices of South Africans are heard, at the ballot box one of the things that I'm expecting is obviously the ANC is gone. It's dead. It's just the hope that the MK does not play a big part in our politics next year. And, to wrap things up, because I'm looking at the time, I just want to say, Ross, thank you so much for coming here. This was one of those, last minute changes, checking, are you available? Am I available? All sorts. And it's always a pleasure to speak to you, my friend. You always opened the door to us here. And it's one of the people that I really enjoy speaking to.
Before we leave, Kutle, I must say that you mentioned the elections are coming up, and it's going to be an election that will realign politics in this country. I really do believe, and I think all the centre is going to stay centre. And I want to plead to everyone in the city of Pietermaritzburg and everywhere alike. In this local government election, we want to come together as political parties with the great good of the people in thought across political spectrums. And let's come together and make sure we keep the right and the left. Let's keep the center strong. Thanks, Kutle, for having me, and always a pleasure seeing you.
Thanks so much, Ross. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, bye.